Hello everyone, it's Channin here for Hero Arts. In today's video, we are going to create this jungle scene card featuring products from the August card kit of the month. Let's start off by taking a closer look at all that's included in the August card kit of the month. First, we have the Jungle Heroscape stamp set. This is a 6x8 stamp set with some layering stamps to help you build your jungle scene. There's also these Jungle Heroscapes dies, so they're coordinating dies with that stamp set. There's even dies in that set for the sentiments as well. Also included are these 5 awesome fancy dies, 5 printed stickers with some beautiful, like almost alcohol ink looking designs. Really pretty, love those. Then you get the Jungle Scenics Stencil. We're going to be using that today to create our card. It's a really handy scene building stencil. You also get these 3 reactive ink cubes, Green Apple, Key Lime Fizz, and Fruit Punch, one of my favorites. A plastic white palette knife, very handy for the also included olive hero wax, which is just gorgeous. I will open it up here so you can see that beautiful kind of shimmery pearlesque like color. Such a pretty wax. And there's also 2 reactive glitz inks that's included in the kit, but I don't actually have those yet. We're going to start with that Jungle Heroscape. Start with the base layer for the leaves and flowers, and we're going to stamp this first in that Key Lime Fizz Reactive Ink. So this is one of the ones that's included in the card kit of the month. Then I stamped it a couple times to make sure it's nice and bold and intense. Then I'm going to grab the Green Apple Reactive Ink cube and a blending brush, load up the brush with that color, and then just ink up that upper third with that darker green. And this is going to create a soft ombre look to our this base layer of the leaves. This is going to add more interest later on, more depth. I'm going to stamp it one more time just to kind of make that green a little bit darker, but again, applying that ink to the stamp with the blending brush. That gives a nice softer blend and creates a smoother gradation. I'm positioning the second stamp for the leaves. This is the detail layer stamp. And once I've positioned it, I picked it up with my Misty, and I'm going to ink up the entire stamp in Green Apple Reactive Ink. This is also an ink that's included in the August card kit. Now we're going to move on to Nautical. I want to create a gradation over this, so I inked up the upper third in that dark blue ink. Used a blending brush along the bottom edge of the ink to kind of soften it so we get a nice smooth gradation, because this is a big jump in color. I'm going to do it again, repeat that a couple more times to make sure it's nice and dark. But I didn't quite like that color. It looked almost like a black, so I'm now inking up the upper 2/3 with blue raspberry reactive ink, using a blending brush to soften the transition, and then again repeating that step a couple of times to and stamping it to get this a little bit more blue color. And now I really like this gradation. It's a really nice contrast between the 2 layers, lots of depth. Now we're going to move on to the flowers. There's 1 stamp for the flowers here, so I pulled it off. I'm going to position it in the openings of our leaves. Once I get it in the right spot, I'll pick it up with my Misty. I'm going to ink it up in Creamsicle Reactive Ink, stamp it a couple times to again get that orange nice and intense. I'm trying to use the full ink pads for any ink that's not included in the kit, so if you see a cube like here with the Fruit Punch, this is also included in the kit. So I've inked up the upper portion of some of the flowers, some of the groupings of flowers, so I didn't completely ink the flowers up with this Fruit Punch, but inked up the upper portions, and that creates a little gradation over the flowers, and again, just makes the flowers more interesting, more depth. And I really love how this part of our scene really turned out. This has lots of depth and contrast, really pretty. So now I'm using one of the coordinating dies that are included with the kit to die cut our scene out, and you'll see here the die will cut out right along the bottom edge and the right and left side, but it won't cut the top, and I'm going to just take my paper trimmer to trim that off. Now I'm going to move on to creating our background. So I'm going to use that jungle scene stencil. I'm going to position it, start at the very bottom of my A2 top folding white card base. I will then grab some purple tape to mask off the additional openings in that stencil. I really only want to use the top of this stencil, which has the cutouts of the leaves. So I'm going to ink blend this with Key Lime Fizz first and kind of ink blend a big area with that light green. Then we'll move on to Green Apple and just ink blend right along the edge of the stencil. So we're really just getting like the bottom of the leaves. And this is going to add a little gradation and again make the leaves kind of have more interest and more depth. So now I'm going to reposition the stencil here, just slide it over a little bit. I don't want to have the stencil centered over this card front every time I ink blend this, and basically repeating the process. Key Lime Fizz first, then the Green Apple along the edge. Just repeating this process till I have my whole front, my whole card front covered with the leaves. And again, I am sliding my stencil over here and there just so the pattern is not completely repeated. It would look a little boring and a little strange if the leaves were always in the same position every level, every step up. So we're just sliding it over to kind of break it up a little bit. Now I'm almost done here. This is the last bit. We're going to ink blend that top with the 2 greens, and that will complete our background. So really pretty and fun. Lots of depth there thanks to those gradations. Now I went ahead and took an A2 card base and die cut it with a Nesting Rectangles Infinity die to create this frame. The opening is 3 1/4 by 4 1/2. And now I'm using that frame to just kind of help me figure out where I want this kind of drooping vine portion of the stencil to go. I then kind of removed the frame and then taped it in place, again using tape to kind of block any of the other openings of the stencil that I don't actually want to ink blend, because I'm a little bit messy when I ink blend and I get ink everywhere, so I want to make sure I kind of mask off here. I first ink blended that whole vine in Green Apple, which again was included in the kit. Then I moved on to Blue Raspberry, which wasn't included, and then Nautical. These are the same inks, if you remember earlier, that we used to stamp that layered leaf section of the scene from using the Jungle Hero Escape in the beginning of the video. Now I've just repositioned the stencil, again ink blended with Green Apple, then Blue Raspberry, and then finished with Nautical on the sides of the vine. Now we're going to ink blend these straight sections of vines kind of hanging from the top of our scene, again using my 3 colors, Green Apple, Blue Raspberry, and Nautical, same inks I used to stamp the leaves earlier. And then we'll position it one more time here, ink blend with the same colors, and that will finish up our hanging vines. Those add so much more interest. I really love how they push the blending that we did earlier of the leaves back, and we're just really creating lots of depth in this scene. Now we're going to stamp the birds. So I started with the base layer for the birds and positioned them here over a scrap of white cardstock, stamped them in Creamsicle a couple of times again just to make sure that that orange is nice and bold and crisp. Once I finish with the Creamsicle, I will then grab Fruit Punch and ink up the upper half of the birds with that red and then stamp them. This is going to again create a little gradation over the birds. This is exactly how we did the flowers earlier. And after I stamp them, we are that Fruit Punch, we're now ready for the second layer. This is the detail layer for the birds. I positioned that layer, picked up with my Misty, and we're going to just stamp this in a black ink. I'm using Intens-ified Black from Hero Arts, which is a Copic friendly ink. We are going to do a little bit of Copic coloring actually because I want to bring out the beaks. So we did stamp the beaks already, but I'm now going to grab R59, just a really dark red, and color over the beaks with that dark red just so they are a little bit more bold and visible. You can see here that really does help make those beaks pop a little bit more. And now that I've colored those, I went ahead and die cut them out with the coordinating dies. They look so great. I love how they're bringing out the colors of the flowers. We're going to now start to kind of put things together. I'm going to start by adhering our leaf section of our scene to our white frame, which again I die cut off screen using one of the Nesting Infinities rectangles. Once I adhere that down, I'll then grab my scissors and just cut off the excess of the leaves just so they don't poke out from behind our panel. Then we're going to move on to stamping our sentiment. I've kind of arranged everything here in my Misty the way I want it, so I know where, what area I'm working with for the sentiment. Positioned my sentiment, picked it up with my Misty, and now cleared everything out of the way just because I'm afraid I'll somehow get ink on my other pieces. when I stamp my sentiment. And again, I just stamped it in black. That kind of brings in the black that we used for the detail layer on the birds. Now I went ahead off camera and added foam adhesive to the backside of our frame. So I've just removed the backing and I'm now going to stick it down onto our card front. I've also already added foam adhesive to the backside of our birds, so they're going to be popped up as well. So I'm just removing the backing on that, position those, and once I get that last bird in place, our card is complete. I'll hold it up to the camera here so you can get a good look at this really fun jungle card. It's very tropical, very bright green, which I love. And I just love how all those elements came together to make this scene that's so lush and just really pretty. Hope you guys enjoyed today's card and video. If you have any questions about the products I use, please check out the links below in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.